Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a literal biological paradox that's happening inside of you right this very second. We are going to unpack the incredibly intricate, totally awe-inspiring, and honestly, sometimes terrifying dual nature of your immune system.
Okay, let's jump right in. Just take a look at this quote. Immunity is a defense mechanism, but can also be injurious to the body. It perfectly hits the nail on the head for what we're talking about today. How exactly does our absolute greatest biological protector have the potential to become our most dangerous threat?
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the double-edged sword, meet your cellular defenders, the molecular ID badge, when defenses attack you, the transplant dilemma, and finally, when the shield breaks.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the double-edged sword.
To really map out your baseline cellular defenses, you've basically got two massive branches working for you. On one side, you have your natural or innate immunity. Think of this as your broad, immediate cleanup crew. It's completely nonspecific and acts as your absolute first line of defense. It uses components like complement proteins, neutrophils, and macrophages to just blindly attack anything foreign. But on the flip side is your specific or adaptive immunity. This branch is a game changer because it's characterized by incredible antigenic specificity and memory. Using B cells and T cells, it literally learns from every single infection you've ever had, perfectly adapting to neutralize those repeat offenders.
Moving right along to Section 2, meet your cellular defenders.
Before we meet the actual soldiers on the ground, we kind of need to understand the layout of the battlefield. Let's start with the trigger itself, the antigen, or egg. This is usually a protein, and it's the exact molecule that stimulates your body to produce antibodies. You can think of an antigen like the invader's unique footprint. It's the exact trigger that sets off all your biological alarms. But not all triggers are that straightforward. Take the hapten, for instance. Haptens are super sneaky. They're non-proteins that are completely harmless all on their own. But there's a catch. They become dangerous, antigenic triggers the second they combine with one of your own native proteins.
So, how exactly does your body hit back at an antigen? It deploys antibodies, or A, also known as immunoglobulins. You've probably heard of IgG, IgA, or IgM. These are the highly specific, custom-built weapons your body manufactures on demand to completely neutralize those specific invaders.
Now, who's actually wielding all these weapons? Your lymphocytes, the true master cells of your immune system. The really crucial point to notice here is just the massive dominance of T cells in your specific immune system. Coming in at a whopping 75% to 80% of the distribution, they are absolutely the primary workforce here, totally dwarfing the B cells and natural killer cells which make up the rest.
Since T cells are totally running the show, we really need to look closer at what they do. They're basically split into two vital roles. First, the CD4 plus T helper cells. These guys act as the commanders, promoting and coordinating the immune reactions using chemical messengers. And then you have the CD8 plus cytotoxic cells. These act as the assassins, directly hunting down and destroying antigens, like viruses and even tumor cells.
And you know those chemical messengers the commanders use? Right, they're called cytokines. Cytokines make up the absolutely crucial communication network of the entire immune system. But there is a major risk here. If they overreact, they can trigger what's known as a cytokine storm. The system just floods with panic signals, causing this runaway inflammatory response that can actually be deadly to the host. It's literally why, sometimes, the immune response to a severe virus makes you feel way worse than the actual virus itself.
Which brings us to Section 3, the molecular ID badge. Okay, so to make absolutely sure these weapons only hit the bad guys, your body uses a super strict identification system. Central to the whole thing is the human leukocyte antigen, or HLA. These are genetic proteins located right on your nucleated cells and platelets that determine histocompatibility. Basically, they tell your body what is self versus non-self. Think of the HLA system as your biological passport. It's how your immune bouncers instantly know that you belong there.
And just look at how incredibly meticulous this organization is within the major histocompatibility complex. Notice how specific classes only interact with specific master cells. Class 1 receptors are strictly dealing with those CD8 plus assassin cells. Class 2 are identified by B cells and those CD4 plus commanders. It is a highly sophisticated, completely locked down security grid running 24/7.
But this brings up a pretty terrifying thought. We've seen this pristine, flawless defense network, right? But now we kind of have to pivot to the dark side of immunity. What actually happens when the ultimate defense system forgets who you are?
That leads us right into Section 4, when defenses attack you.
This is exactly where the hero gets confused and just starts burning down the village it swore to protect. The system essentially deranges in two distinct ways. First, you have hypersensitivity reactions. These are excessive, completely inappropriate immune responses to things that shouldn't be threats at all, like pollen causing an extreme allergic reaction. Second, and honestly far more tragic, are autoimmune diseases. This is a total, catastrophic failure of those HLA passports we just talked about. The body totally fails to recognize self from non-self and turns its most devastating cellular weapons entirely on your own cells.
Next up, Section 5, the transplant dilemma.
So, that hypervigilant defense network and flawless ID system, it actually creates a massive medical hurdle when we want to introduce foreign tissue to save someone's life. To really understand transplant rejection, we first have to categorize the source of the tissue itself. Autografts come from the exact same person. Isografts come from identical twins. Allografts come from the same species, so another human. And xenografts come from an entirely different species altogether. As you might guess, the further down this list you move, the more aggressively your immune system is going to try to destroy that life-saving tissue.
And the timeline of rejection is, well, it's a pretty heartbreaking reality. Hyperacute rejection can destroy a transplant in mere minutes to hours, literally right there on the operating table, driven by preformed antibodies violently attacking the new organ. Acute rejection can happen over the course of days to months. And even if a patient survives those hurdles, chronic rejection can still slowly erode the transplant over months to years through progressive fibrosis.
But honestly, maybe the most jarring complication of all is the graft versus host reaction. In a really tragic irony, sometimes the host doesn't reject the organ at all. Instead, the transplanted organ contains its own active immune cells. Those transplanted cells look around, realize they are in a foreign body, and begin attacking the vulnerable, immunodeficient host. The life-saving organ essentially declares war on the patient.
Finally, Section 6, when the shield breaks. We've seen the system overreact, and we've seen it get completely confused. But what happens when these incredible protective mechanisms are just absent? This is immunodeficiency, and it basically leaves the castle gates wide open. It can be primary, meaning genetic defects inherited at birth, like SCID or DiGeorge's syndrome, which affects the T cells. Or it can be secondary, acquired later in life through devastating infections like the AIDS pandemic, or through cancer and severe malnutrition. Whether it's genetic or acquired, the profound loss of this system leaves the body entirely defenseless against even the mildest of everyday bugs.
So this leaves us with one final major thought. As we continue to decode the human immune system, literally mapping every cytokine, every T-cell interaction, and every single genetic marker, we have to wonder what medical breakthroughs are waiting for us in the future. If our greatest protector is also our most dangerous threat, how close are we to finally mastering this double-edged sword? It's a massive question, and it's one researchers are racing to answer every single day. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it gave you a totally new appreciation for the invisible, absolutely wild battles happening inside of you right now.